Hi, everybody. My name is Jorim Motley. I am from New Rochelle, New York. I'm 26 years old. Uh, my life is service. I am a recording artist, actor, director, producer. Um, I'm the CCO at a media company called Friction. Uh, I'm the senior, well, at this point, the only, but for now, um, senior music and sound director at Mindshift Thrive Global Ministries. I'm a director and DP at Evil Films. Uh, I do a lot of things. I do a lot of things I love. I'm very blessed to be able to say that. Um, yeah, but you're not here for all that. You're here to understand how I got here. You're here to hear a testimony. So the only place you can really start from with that is the beginning. Uh, so one day I was born, August 5th. That was cool. I was born with my eyes open. Um, Scared the doctors. I was like looking around, like, oh man, I'm here. Like allegedly, like that's what I heard from my dad. I don't remember, but that was an interesting day. Uh, Same. Fast forward to I guess 8 years later, when things in my life really started changing. I'm 8 years old. My mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer maybe a year and a half ago, from the time I was eight, anyway. And I didn't really understand. I was just a kid. I naturally, when you're a kid and you're as inquisitive as I was, you want to do research. I remember spending hours on hours on hours researching what limited knowledge there was at the time. This had to be around like 2008. Um, yeah, I think 2008 or 2006, 2006, excuse me. Um, just looking for any information I could on breast cancer, the different stages of it, how it affects the host body, and the usual life expectancy. Usually, the usual life expectancy at that time, which was really not that great. There wasn't a lot of development and treatment or much knowledge on it. But I'm just gathering all this information, 8 years old, on a laptop, thinking, I wish I could become a doctor to save my mother. Uh, and that really, I think that really was the start of me learning how to do things on my own. I became very self-reliant. I became very didactic. I took it upon myself to, I made it very incumbent upon myself that I needed to do the things that were necessary to make the change I wanted to see in my life and in other people's lives. That's always been a responsibility that I'd put on myself, but I think during that time, that was when it was really, when I decided that it would be a reality for me that I chose to adhere to. Um, but I was only eight. There wasn't much I could do. She would later pass away. And that was difficult, to say the least. Um, And I smile looking back on it now because of everything that I know now compared to what I knew then. Not just about not just about her condition, um, but really just about life in general. All the things that even if I knew the things, even if I was able to like go back in time and like talk to my younger self, it was all stuff that at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't have understood and was not meant to understand. Uh, yeah. When she passed, it affected my dad very, like a very great deal. My whole family, really. But my my dad and my sister, um, and at the end of the day, I could only this is my only this is my only perception of events because they were the two people I was closest to. Uh, I'm sure it affected a lot of other people that were close to my mother as well, like a great deal. But seeing my father and my sister every day, um, I was privy to how difficult that experience was for them. And whereas I was the type of person to remove myself and to figure out ways of trying to rationalize everything that had happened, or everything that was going on in my life at the time, my father and my sister, they were very, they were seeking connection, which was great. I didn't know how to reciprocate that at the time. I think one of my greatest regrets, which I thank God that I have the ability to rectify now, is to be there for both my sister and my father when they are dealing with pain. I remember my sister she would try to talk to me about how she was feeling, and I basically said something along the lines of like, "You're feeling too much. You're allowing this to get to you too much. You know, it's something that has already happened. There's nothing we can do to change it. We just have to numb ourselves to it and keep going." That was my mindset at 8. Um, I didn't express that to my dad, uh, but in the times where he grieved, I really, I saw it and I considered it weakness, uh, especially in contrast to the times where he was dealing with things very heavily and he was upset, um, and against his better judgment, and against the truth of his nature, he would take it out on my sister and I. Um, not necessarily in not necessarily in a physically abusive way. Uh, if you're in a black family, you get in a whooping regardless. So like, there's nothing you can really do about that. But the verbal abuse, uh, when it was there, it was there, and I think that's something that my sister and I, uh, and honestly any child for that matter, that experiences a parent being verbally abusive or threatening, um, even to the point of potentially threatening a kid's life, regardless of whether or not they're in control of their faculties or what they're doing or not, it's going to have an effect on that kid. Not just from a standpoint of, oh, this is how this person that's supposed to be taking care of me perceives like me and like my existence and what I have to look out for in order to exist in the space with them, but also from the standpoint of this is the inner voice that you hear in your head that's guiding you day to day. Um, Kids see. kids don't listen to you. They just copy what you do. That's something that I feel really blessed to have learned, despite all of that trial and tribulation that I went through in my home life with my dad. But yeah, kids don't listen, which is good because sometimes we don't have all the answers. Um, anyway, yeah, I was super closed off. I retreated into my room and I would write for hours on end. I'd read books. I wanted to escape this world. Um, Reality had become very difficult for me to bear. So I needed to make a new one, essentially. Um, got really into comic books. And one thing about comic books, something that's super cool now because everybody saw nerds and geeks and they were like, ooh, that could actually make money, is multiverses, right? So you have like the MCU, like they're jumping over to this universe and that universe and da 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 da. All that. I was on that before it was cool. So y'all took that from me. I just need to make that very clear. I need to make that very clear. And we're gonna get to that in a minute in the music. But I was very into the idea that there was another place that was like tangibly accessible in some way, shape, or form that was way better than where I was at in my present moment. Um, if I wasn't immersing myself into those spaces, I was hanging out a lot with friends who weren't necessarily experiencing the same things that I was, but had, their own share of difficulties and hardships and had the same, for all intents and purposes, the same creative knowledge and ability that I did. So I was surrounded by like my first best friends ever, David and Lucas, love them to death. Um, when we would get together, if Lucas and I weren't fighting and David wasn't like telling his mom like Jorim and Lucas are fighting again, we were all creating stuff. And yeah, we would just sit down, we'd make movies and stuff, we'd make comic books together, we'd write stories, um, play video games. We loved doing things that allowed us to like free our minds, to be creative, and to just exist outside the purview of like everything that was going on that might have been difficult or hard to rationalize or hard to explain or get through. Um, my dad would also put me into piano lessons. I loved music long before, um, long before I got into piano lessons. But I think that he really did that to get me out of the house. Partially because he didn't want me out anywhere doing anything else. I mean, I was 8. It's not like I'm gonna go out in the streets or anything, but I get what he was trying to do. And and he also didn't want me there with him because he knew he was spiraling. So I appreciate his ability to, I guess, kill two birds with one stone and put me in something productive as well as maintaining like his own space. And it also in a way that like that doesn't necessarily like make itself so evident. Like imagine like your mother passes and then your dad is like, yeah, I think I need some space from you to like process this on my own. As a kid, you're not surviving that. So it was really smart of him and I'm very grateful to him for that. I'm thankful for to God that God was the author of that idea, because I don't think in the state of mind he was in, it could there was nobody else but God that could have put that in his head. Um, so I'm doing piano lessons. I hate it. It's terrible. I hate classical music. I don't hate it now, but back then I just loathed, despised classical music. Um, this is boring. Bach, like no. Handel, no. Mozart, forget about it. I don't like it. Um, I got really into like I think Maroon 5 was like really popular. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is jazz. Maroon 5 is jazz. I love jazz. Maroon 5 is not jazz. They're like, well, I'm not gonna Maroon 5, if you ever see this, don't hate me, please, but you're not jazz. Um, but yeah, I started hearing the music that I actually liked, and I after piano lessons I wouldn't practice anything from piano lessons. Maybe like the day of I'd like practice a little bit just to like get by, and it was pretty easy, I'm not gonna lie, so I could just fake it until I make it. But after piano lessons I'd get back home and I just listen to songs and I just learn how to play them myself. That really it got to a point where like I my dad was like, you should keep your piano like next to your bed, or like keep it really close to you, or like even like have it in the bed with you, so like if you wake up and you hear a melody you can play it, or just make sure that it's as close as possible to you so that you can always access it, and just keep practicing, like keep creating. So I'm like, oh, you're cool with me doing that? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm playing music all the time. I'm literally creating like a relationship like with my piano, down to like just pressing notes over and over again just to hear how they sound, so I can know how each one sounds, so I can play piano even when I'm not at a piano. Um, that was like, yeah, music is that level of intimacy, uh, in that practice alone, made music my first love. Um, I guess, yeah, that's enough expository for that period of my life. Uh, we can move on. When I was when I was 13, I was growing, young man. Not really growing, like I was like 4 foot 12 when I was 8. Now I'm 5'3". Nothing really like changed physically height wise, but I was like growing in other places, as all 13-year-old men do, boys, not men. Uh, and or dang, was I 13? We'll call it 13 for now. I started dating my friend. Started dating my best friend. She's my best friend still to this day. Really cool kid. Um, not gonna say her name because I don't want anybody to like get jealous or like lose their mind or anything. Some of y'all are not healed. I'm healing too, so it's okay. But in that respect, you're not healed, and I don't need that. Um, uh, and I really, 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 like, I was super young. I was like, oh, this is the person I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with. Da 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 da. Like, you know how that goes. Um, we just get into high school. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in high school. This is about to be my high school sweetheart. As soon as we graduate, I'm putting a ring on it, like that. Like, that's it. Um, and I think like I think when you get older and we tend to like look at ourselves and we look at those experiences and we're like, oh, we were just young, we were just dumb, we didn't know what we were talking about. I knew what I was talking about. I was very determined to make that a reality. And I was raised Christian. I was raised on faith. My dad was, and still is to this day, um, he's a man of God. I was raised where God was the head of the household before anybody. Um, and I went into that relationship knowing that the only way it would thrive or it would flourish was if God remained the head of that. Um, but I was also young, so a lot of the stuff that I prayed would happen, and a lot of where my desire was at, uh, it didn't really match my actions. Uh, I lied a lot. Uh, there was a lot of insecurity that I held within myself. I had taught myself to almost like remove my emotions in stressful situations at a very young age. So that showed up in that relationship as well. Um, and then the person that I was with as well, she had a myriad of things going on in her life as well. Um, so it didn't work. Uh, praise God. Thank God that didn't work. Thank God that ended. Not because like I don't love her, I do. She's still my best friend to this day, but the path that we were on would not have been good for anybody. Um, but I took that pain with me later on into we broke up at 17. We dated for 4 years, all throughout high school. Um, turn 18, I go into college. Dangerous, dangerous time. Um, yeah, heartbroken. I'm wondering what I did wrong. I'm wondering what's wrong with me. I'm wondering, not even, no, I'm not even wondering at this point. At this point, I'm utterly convinced that she's the worst person on the planet and that, she hates me and da 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 da, this, that, and the third. Um, so I get to college. I am just fooling around, foolish, foolish, crazy. Um, and still bringing that pain and that still bringing that pain from that previous relationship with me, and also the desire for intimacy, or that desire for that deep connection or the deep love that I had for that person, completely not even realizing at the time, or not even putting two and two together, knowing that like the only thing that really was cultivating that connection in its most positive moments was God. Um, the losing that relationship, I think coupled with like the previous trauma from losing like my mother, that's like a prominent mother figure, everything just kind of worked together to produce like a very, very bad and very dark product within me. So a lot of my desires were pure. They later wouldn't be. Um, but a lot of my actions were not. A lot of my ways of reaching those things were not. And that's not to say that they were evil, but they were distorted, if that makes sense. Um, hmm. So yeah, you have this kid in college who is talking to everybody and anybody that will give him the time of day. There were definitely people that I'm still friends with to this day that I love very much, and that there was always love there. But I think at the root of those experiences was a lot of pain that existed within, that made them difficult to maintain. That filtered its way into my work, that and then the work filtered its way back into my life. It was just a crazy feedback loop, a crazy cycle of I'm gonna do this potentially destructive, self-destructive thing, or I'm going to agree to, you know, share my time with this person instead of look at myself and maybe get help and see what's going on, as to distract myself from my real problems. Uh, and then I'd write music about it, and then you just rinse and repeat. Um, and that was just my freshman year of college. My sophomore year of college, I started talking to this young lady. Um, she asked me to come over to her house one night, so naturally I went. Uh, and mind you, I was doing a lot of things, but I wasn't like very sexually active. It's weird, but I wasn't really like sexually active. So I hmm, I went over there. I went over there a couple of times actually, and everything was cool. We're chilling. Maybe we kissed once or twice. I'd sleep over at times, whatever. I went over there one night, and she says that she wants to go further. I continued to tell her no. Um, but I felt a lot of pressure, and I don't know where this episode is going to fall in relation to Rosanna's. Shout out Rosanna Novaes, Mindshift Thrive Global Ministries. Check out everything that she's doing. She also has a testimony of her own, and in her testimony, she talks about not fight or flight, but freezing, which is when you feel so afraid that you stop. You feel like if you try to escape the danger, you try to combat the danger or the situation that you're in, um, you'll it'll end you. So I was in that state of mind. Um, so I went through with it. I really didn't want to. It was the first time I would ever have sex with anybody. Um, and I did the thing that I used to do when I was a kid where I completely turned off all my emotions and just went through it. And and then it was over. I ran into our bathroom. I had a panic attack in the shower, and then I went to sleep. And I woke up the next day and I went to class. And that night, even though even though it didn't really seem like much, because when I did express how I felt about the situation, the young lady was like, "No, I didn't make you do anything. I didn't force you to do anything. I didn't coerce you. I didn't do any of that." Um, when that was the response that I'd gotten, I told myself that, okay, maybe I'm crazy. Uh, maybe, you know, I just, maybe that was what I wanted to do and that was my decision. And I've experienced anxiety before. It was just a new experience, and new experiences just make me, you know, anxious. Uh, if you're anybody that has experienced that, or any form of sexual abuse or abuse in general, where you are put in a position to do something that you inherently don't want to do, or you say no to something and somebody tries to change your mind, you don't deserve that. It is not what you want to do. It's just not. Um, and if you say no, then it means no. And that person has to leave you alone. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And it's never going to be your fault. It's so funny thinking about it too, because a couple hours after I told her how I felt about that whole situation, she told me that she'd experienced the same exact thing. And at that point, it was weird. I wasn't even, at that point, I wasn't even mad at her. Like, I couldn't even, at first, I felt like I'd never felt hate in my life, but I hated her. But even after hearing that, I was like, wow, literally, you're literally just doing the only thing that you knew. Uh, so yeah, cycles, crazy. Um, that experience would go with me into every relationship that I was in for a really long time. I stopped pursuing people because I loved them, and I pursued them because they made me feel safe. And it is one thing, it's an amazing feeling to feel safe with somebody and to trust somebody, but that's not all there is. Um, and I definitely lost sight of that during that time. I think for like the next, that happened when I was 19. I think for the next like, yeah, 5 years. Crazy. And it went all into the music. I know I didn't give enough information about the music, so I'll do that now. I I'm a recording artist. Okay. I've had, oh my gosh, I've had like, I'm on my fifth career doing this. Um, I've been the angsty teen misfortune. I've been scot free. I've been pink noise. There's other people in there somewhere that just never came to fruition. Um, but for the most part, uh, a lot of the music was me chronicling my life and my experiences, but also the literal like fracturing of my being, like me breaking apart at the seams and trying to put myself back together in a way that I that makes sense, I guess. Um So to all my musicians out there, making that album is not going to heal you. Ugh, I know it sucks. It's terrible. Like that one single that like, oh my gosh, I just bared my soul on that track. That's not going to save you. It's not. All the money you could make in this world will not save you. All the deals, all the lights, the cameras, the action, it's not going to save you at all, ever.
Um, I'm glad you brought up that point because I remember I talked like when I first got into like listening to gospel and listening to that type of music, you knew like names that I didn't know. Can you like tell me when that journey happened when you got into like gospel music or knowing or hearing of gospel
Oh yeah.
music?
Yeah. I was raised in like a Christian household, so my dad was putting me on to like so many different artists. Um, one thing Malik likes to say is I was raised by OGs. I definitely was. Um, but yeah, I was put onto gospel music at a very, very young age. That's what I grew up on. That's like the basis of my training, so to speak, especially like vocally, especially harmonically even. Um, and then in high school as well, I was also in gospel choir. And I was doing like regular like choir that would sing gospel songs at times, or Renaissance choir. Shout out Mr. James. Amazing, amazing everything. Like anything musical, he's great at it. I learned so much from him during my high school years. Um, but yeah, gospel music has always been a a large part of my life. I think now with where I'm going musically, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm going in the direction of gospel music, but I do want my faith to be at the forefront of what I'm doing. Even down to like changing my artist name, which is now Source. The reason that I did that is because God is the source of creation. Like from everything that we have, everything that has happened to me in my life, everything that I have comes from God. And I dare I say, and whoever this makes upset, you can be mad. That's cool. I'm chilling. Um, I know that I'm just a piece of God waiting to return back to the source of whence I came. And yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, that's the only way to put it for real.
Another question. When, because I know you was raised in it, and like a lot of people I meet that was raised in ministry, they stray away from it, you know, or
Mm,
raised with family that was devoted Christians. Like, when was that point when you like ran back towards Jesus and like when you felt like, wait, because I feel like a lot of people I meet that's raised like you and upbringing,
yeah,
family super religious, they run away, but they always come back. When was
yeah,
that moment for you?
yeah. Um, so my in this whole testimony, like I would say 55% of it is me talking about my close relationships and my romantic relationships, just because regardless of all of the stuff in my life that I've done, those are the most important things to me is my relationships with my people. Um, and I am a very it a lot of people would say that I'm not or that I don't seem like it. Sometimes, but I'm a very hard and deep lover. Um, so when I experienced scenarios where that love was either tainted or that love had to be removed from me, or there was like a separation of that feeling or the ability to exist in that love. Uh, I think I think feeling that consistently over a short period of time, uh, that's what separated me, or that's I think feeling that over a long period of time is what caused me to separate myself from God to the point where I was like, God can't be real. This person that I prayed for 4 years consistently to be with for the rest of my life is not in my life anymore. Um, so I think what what brought me back to God was recognizing that the only way the only way to find that love or have the potential to achieve that state of I guess the only way to achieve that state of being in that place from a pure like wholesome way that really allows for success, if that even is God's will, because at the end of the day, if it's not, it's not, and I'm learning how to be cool with that too. Um, is to seek God. There were so many relationships that I'd been in afterwards. Um, there's so many relationships that I'd been in after very tragic things happened to me that I thought defined me that actually don't define me at all. Um, and I allowed that to be the truth of myself, and I didn't allow myself to hear what God says about me. Um, and even in wanting to mend those parts of my life, I put more pressure on myself to fix those things or to be the mender of those things instead of allowing God to do the work. Um, so yeah, what brought me back to God was knowing that there's no way that I can get to where I want to be without God, but also that at the end of the day, God is going to do whatever they want to do. And what I want might not even be what they want for me. That's like it's a scary thing to think about when you're thinking about it. But when, uh, my favorite word right now is relinquish. Like, relinquish. Just stop, let go, leave it alone. This is not, it's not even a burden. Like, you are just holding on. Like, just stop. Just stop. Um, I don't really, when you're able to let go of yourself, it's easier to go back to God. So yeah.
It's awesome. When you like like I've been around you for years, since you was probably what 18,
Yeah.
and like I see the changes personally. Like even like you helped me with my Christian journey. Like I remember going to church, you come with me every week, and you knowing the word, you knowing all the songs. I'm like, yo, where did this dude have time for all this? Like all he do is make music. Like when did you become so like found with the word? Like you know scriptures, like what age were you reading the Bible?
Um, I my hmm, I started reading the Bible when I was like 6, when I was in first grade. And that was literally just my mother and my father. They were just pouring that into me super like the moment I came out the womb. Even before then, my mother was reading the Bible to me. Um, when I was in her belly, my dad would do the same thing. Like they were both very committed to making sure that their children had God walking alongside them. Um, and I guess part of the time came from being disobedient. Like I said, kids do not like to listen. So there were times where I didn't want to listen. I would do things I wasn't supposed to do. And um, I was told to read the Bible. I was told to look up words from the Bible and then write them down, look them up in the dictionary, write them down like hundreds of times, like as a punishment. Like, even like, yeah, there were like punishments that were a lot, but there were some things that were literally like for my edification, like for my growth, not just spiritually, but like also like mentally, like intellectually. Um, but yeah, that started at a really young age. I think I started reading the Bible for myself, like really, really for myself. Yeah, I was gonna say recently, but honestly, I just remembered that I used to go to school with my Bible and I just read at recess. Like I wow, that's crazy. Like that just unlocked a memory. That is so wild. Yeah, I used to be on the playground like just reading my Bible and people would be like, "Yo, what are you doing? Like you're in third grade. Why are you reading a Bible on the playground right now?" I was like, I don't know. I'm just and I was not like just like, oh, let me read Proverbs and then I'm put like I was reading like Deuteronomy like a book. Like Harry Potter. Like I'm just like, oh dang, Moses did that. That's crazy. Um but yeah, that started super early. Um and I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for that. I didn't like it back then. I remember my dad saying like, all this stuff that's going on, like you may have like an attitude now, you may be upset now, but later you're gonna thank me. So dad, if you see this, thank you.
I,
You were right. You
I
got
thank him too because you helped me during my journey. So shout out to
it.
dad. If you could pick one verse that your go-to verse will stick with you. It changes. You could say two if one was helped you in an early stage or one helped you now.
I
I would
knew
like I would like you to share that with
I knew this question was coming. So I already chose my verse, and it's actually a verse that I've always appreciated, but I didn't really understand it correctly when I was younger, but now that I do, um, it's become an even greater favorite of mine, and that is let the greatest among you serve. That's it. Um, I'm not, that is not to say like, hmm, it's not a contest. It's not like I'm superior to anyone. I'm What that means is I could literally be the dust under a dung beetle and still make something grow. Like I could be dirt and something will still come from me for the sake of the Lord, for the sake of the people I love. Like, I will just, to put yourself in the position to do whatever needs to be done according to the will of God. If you have that ability in you, that's what you need to be doing. And it's like, it's so simple. It's so easy. Like, it's not like, let the greatest of you go out and make $1 billion and like feed all the homeless people in the world and da 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 and do this and that. Just to serve. Just do what you can. Do what you can, and whatever you're the best at, like for yourself, do that. It doesn't even need to be the greatest among you in relation to like the people you're around. It could be just like whatever you're best at, do that, do it for God, and do it for people, and care for those people the way that God cares for you. So that's my favorite.
I got one more. Because there's a lot of kids that is going through what you went through. Like at a young age and
Yeah.
don't know how to cope. Like, what would you say to those kids, and what would you say to young Jorim
Oh man.
that will help them today? Because this testimony is all about like helping people behind us navigate through life with Christ, navigate through life with God. Like, what would you tell young Jorim at your age today and your wisdom?
Uh, young Joram, man. Uh, I would tell him. I would tell him that. Hmm, that's hard because, like I said, he did not like to listen. Oh, I know what I would say. I would say, you are not going to be good at everything, but you are capable of anything. And that won't always make you the best, but at the very least, will make you very dangerous. Um, but don't be dangerous to like hurt people. Like, be dangerous to like, don't be dangerous when it's necessary. Don't be dangerous just to be dangerous. It's not worth it. It's not fun. It's not cool. Nobody likes you. Like, you're all alone. It's boring. It gets tired after a while. Like, you'll get over it super quick. I don't know. I also I know I'm being extra right now, but I'm gonna say something to my older self too. Bro, stop stop worrying, please. Like, stop worrying about the mistakes. The mistakes are the little unique things that are going to make whatever you're creating look beautiful and stand out and stand apart from everything. Let God be in control. Stop trying to control things. You don't even know how to drive. Well, hopefully you know how to drive now. You don't know how to drive. I don't know how to drive right now. I have no business trying to control as much stuff as I'm trying to control. Just stop. Like, it's okay. Like, you're good. You're still worth it, even if you're not like doing everything that you want to do. Like, you're gonna get there. If there's stuff that you still want to do, that means you're still growing. And that's literally all you can do, is just grow. So, grow. Yeah. All right.